Okay, so today we're going to be looking at a character that hasn't appeared for a long time. People love this character. Again, like I mentioned in the cast video, out of every game people want him to return in, it is Resident Evil Reverse. People think he'll be a pretty cool character, again, based on his background and stuff like that. So today, we're going over his backstory before the events of RE0, who he is, what he was doing, and how he ended up where he is now. So without any further ado, let's get into the backstory lore of Billy Coen. So way back in 1997, Billy was a second lieutenant in the United States Marine Corps, and he himself, along with a team of Marines, were sent into hostile territory in Africa to basically go and attack a village suspected of being used as a guerrilla training ground for obviously guerrilla soldiers, guerrilla fighters, and stuff like that. Unfortunately, during the airdrop, they were a little bit off target, and that resulted in a lot of the team having to march pretty significant distances across hostile terrain to the objective. Because of that, and the heat that they were in, and the amount of enemy attacks they came across, the squad was eventually reduced just to 4 people. And when they finally arrived at the village, they found out that the village was actually just an innocent village. It was full of innocent people doing nothing wrong at all. Billy's commanding officer at the time ordered the execution of the villagers anyway, and framed Billy for it, basically, saying that he was basically under extreme conditions and unintentionally killed a lot of civilians. Upon returning back to, obviously, headquarters, they did kind of court-martial Billy, and he was arrested and was basically imprisoned and sentenced to death, which is, pretty shit. I would be pissed if it was me. Like, let's be real. You get framed for something you didn't even do, and it was out of your control, and now you're unwillingly arrested and put on death row. It's a pretty bad situation to be in. Jump forward a certain amount of time, and he has been transported in a military vehicle to be executed, and the vehicle is derailed by a pack of Cerberus in the mountains of Arklay, which is obviously where the first game takes place. Keep in mind, Resident Evil 0 is a prequel to the original game. Billy obviously used that kind of opportunity to escape his vehicle and run away, and he took refuge in the Ecliptic Express, which is the train you're on at the very beginning of the game. And then soon after, the STARS team were sent in to investigate reports of a murder in that general vicinity, and then that is when Billy and Rebecca meet on board the train. But that's really essentially it for his backstory. So what I'm going to do now is kind of go over, theories that people have, whether he's still alive, whether he will return in the future, and just talk about general kind of questions people have about the character. So in terms of the character still being alive, a lot of people did have the question, is he still alive? Because obviously Raccoon City blew up, and the mansion in the mountains blew up, so that's where you kind of basically end up at the end of the game. At the end of Resident Evil 0, you basically end up near the mansion. He is still alive. Developers have confirmed that he did survive all the way until at least 2006, which is 8 years after the events of Resident Evil 0. So around 8 years, again, after the events of the first game and second game. Having said that, that also does confirm he survived Raccoon City, because he was actually deployed with the UBCS soldiers during the incident. He was there, and the developer saying he survived does suggest that he made it out of the city before it blew up, which is good. So he is definitely still alive, did survive the incident in Raccoon City as well. There was theories going around that he was the person they turned into Nemesis, but that obviously isn't true. Again, he's alive, very much so after the events of the game, so it's not him. But any kind of, hint at return for the character has been kind of, dismissed. It would make sense to bring him back, but I don't know if there's any kind of, again, kind of like the Sherry video I made, the circumstances have to make sense for the character to return. A leading theory is with the Revelations 3 game, or Outrage, whichever one it may be. Obviously Rebecca is supposed to be the main character in that game, and she could call in help from him, because I'd imagine they would keep in contact, because she basically made it seem that he was dead at the end of 0. Like, she basically said, "Oh, you're dead, so go." So she reported him as dead, basically to let him go free and kind of slip under the radar for a little bit, which is nice. So that could be a possibility that he comes back in, although apparently Rebecca and Leon are the main characters in that game, but we'll see. But that's basically it. It's been a long time since we've seen the character and heard from the character. He's not dead, so there's always the potential to have him come back at some point, but again, it depends on circumstances, it depends if it makes sense, and it depends on, obviously, the fan reaction to the character originally, which definitely was positive, I would say. People did like the character quite a lot. In terms of Resident Evil 0 itself, it's mixed opinions, I think. Some people really like it, some people really didn't like it. I'm kind of on the fence with it. I think the game's good. I think it's really fiddly in terms of gameplay-wise. It's super fiddly with the lack of item box and the switching between characters and stuff like that. There's a lot of back and forth unnecessarily. But the game itself is good. It's just a bit of a nuisance at times. But as always, let me know your thoughts on Billy as a character. Do you want him to come back? Do you think he's not coming back? Do you like the character? I'm always interested to know your thoughts. But yeah, that'll do it for now. Thank you all for coming by and watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you all tomorrow.